Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today I am excited to present my research paper titled A Journey from Tradition to Transformation with NEP 2020. I hope you find it insightful and thought provoking. Let's begin with a short story to set the stage for our discussion. Once a father and his son were traveling on a scooter. Along their journey, the father noticed some boys by the roadside, searching for something in the mud. Curious, they stopped and approached the boys. When asked what they were looking for, one of the boys pointed to a shining object and said it was a golden fruit. Intrigued by the sight of a golden apple glistening in the mud, the father became fixated on the idea of obtaining it. He imagined that acquiring the fruit would change their lives for the better. Driven by the vision, he urged his son to retrieve the food at any cost. However, the son had different dreams and tried to explain to his father that his happiness did not lie in obtaining the golden fruit. Despite his son's protests, the father insists, pushing him toward the mud and demanding that he retrieve the fruit. The son, unable to disobey, gave his all to fulfill his father's wish. As he reached for the golden apple, he found him sinking deeper into the mud, which turned out to be treacherous swamp. Desperately, he called out for help, but his father remained adamant, believing that his son could succeed if he tried harder. Tragically, the son sunk further and further until he could no longer escape, ultimately losing his life in the process. It was only then that the father realized the magnitude of his mistake. Devastated, he sat by the roadside and wept. A wise sage happened to pass by and noticed the grieving father. The sage inquired about the causes of his sorrow. The father pointed to the golden fruit and explained his action, believing he had acted for his son's happiness. The sage examined the scene and revealed a crucial detail that the father had overlooked. The sage pointed to a tree nearby and explained that the golden fruit the father had seen in the mud was merely a reflection. The real fruit was up in the tree. The sage gently told the father that if he had asked his son about his true desire and support him in pursuing his own dream, his son would not only be alive but might have even reached the real golden fruit. Every hour, a student in India tragically takes their own life, adding up to heartbreaking 28 lives lost each day. These numbers reported by National Crime Record Bureau. These numbers raising the critical question about our education system. Is our education policy partly to blame? Let's explore the roots of our education history. Examine the present policy and discuss the future of education to understand how we can bring about meaningful changes. History of Indian education system. It was often said that many countries around the world developed their civilization gradually. First, mastering agriculture and animal husbandry, and then turning to education. Remarkably, much of this knowledge was acquired from ancient India, a fact documented by numerous historians. Thousands of years ago, Indian civilization was already advanced in education, a claim supported by the existence of ancient universities such as Takshila and Nalanda, as well as even older educational institutions. This historical evidence demonstrates that education was cornerstone of Indian civilization long before it separated to other part of the world. Over time, the Indian education system evolved, categorized learning into various disciplines and methodologies. Ancient history of the Vedic Indian education system. The world's first universities were established in ancient India, but the history of education in India dates back even further. Historical evidence reveals that ancient India had a well-structured education system. In those times, students sought knowledge from gurus or spiritual leaders. The system required disciples to live and study at the guru's ashram, which were often expansive establishments built by various states. Regardless of their social status, even princes lived and studied at these ashrams, which were located away from crowded areas in forests or secluded buildings. This education system, known as the Vedic education system, began with a religious ceremony called Upanayana. It was an era when education was accessible to all, free from restrictions or hindrances. However, over time, the system evolved and education began to be imparted based on caste. This caste-based education system persisted for a long period. Significant changes occurred with the rise of the Maurya Empire in the 3rd century BCE. Urbanization began and trade centers emerged, leading to new educational developments. During this period, notable figures such as Chanakya, Charaka, and Sushruta emerged. The Gupta Empire, which followed, saw the consolidation of education in large cities with the establishment of prominent universities. During the Gupta period, Varanasi and Nalanda became key centers of learning. This era was marked by the influence of Jainism and Buddhism on education. Modern education began to flourish at Nalanda and Takshashila, where a wide array of subjects, including medicine, philosophy, logic, and arts, were taught. These universities were unique, offering comprehensive education in multiple disciplines. India had become a global education hub, attracting students from China, Russia, and Central Asia. The guru disciple and ashram system continued to be prevalent in villages, ensuring that education was widespread across the country. The medieval period spanning the 10th and 11th centuries, saw the establishment of numerous educational institutions in India. By the 12th century, notable figures like Al-Biruni arrived in India, emphasizing the importance of science and technology. This era marked the beginning of foreign Muslim rule in India, which brought significant changes to the education system. During the 13th and 14th centuries, a transformation took place with the establishment of madrasas and maktabs. Maktabs provided elementary education, while madrasas offered higher education. These institutions taught a broad curriculum, including religious studies, grammar, science, mathematics, and philosophy. This education system continued in India until the 18th century. Despite these developments, the traditional Gurukul and Ashram systems persisted in rural areas, ensuring that ancient educational practices remained an integral part of Indian society. British education system during the British colonial period, significant changes were made to the Indian education system. As the British expanded their control following the decline of Mughal and native rulers, they began to overhaul the existing educational framework. In 1835, the English Education Act was introduced, which transformed the Indian education landscape. The British aimed to create a workforce for clerical jobs rather than skilled professionals, leading to an education system focused on rote learning rather than critical thinking and innovation. In the traditional Gurukul system, students were given assignments that required independent thought and problem solving. They were presented with questions or problems and had to find solutions using their abilities, fostering creativity and deep understanding. In contrast, the British system provided both the questions and the answers, encouraging memorization over exploration and inquiry. This approach emphasized information retention rather than the development of skills or curiosity. Despite these changes, the British did make some progressive reforms, such as opening educational opportunities for women, which was a significant departure from the male-dominated education system of earlier times. Indian education system after gaining independence, India largely continued with the education system established by the British. While the foundational structure remained unchanged, various Indian governments have since introduced reforms to improve higher education, focusing on research and development. However, the basic education system has seen limited modifications. Efforts to reform and enhance the education system are ongoing. Online education system, a major shift occurred in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which profoundly impacted education globally, including in India. The pandemic led to the emergence of online education as a significant mode of learning. Many online institutes were established and parents began investing heavily in their children's education through digital platforms. Traditional schooling methods were supplemented by edtech companies, which offered innovative solutions to meet the evolving educational needs of students. New Education Policy 2020, a revolutionary shift in Indian education. The New Education Policy NEP 2020 marks a significant overhaul of the Indian education system with a focus on inclusivity and practicality. Tailored primarily for government schools, NEP aims to cater to students across all economic backgrounds while also being applicable in private institutions. One of the most transformative changes is the shift from the old 10-2 structure to a new 5-3-3-4 model. The first 5 years constitute the foundational stage, starting from preschool Vidya Pravesh to grade 2, emphasizing toy-based learning and traditional Indian games like Ludo and snakes ladders to enhance cognitive development. In grades 3 to 5, the preparatory stage introduces interactive learning, with subjects such as music, language, mathematics, and science being taught from the first grade. A unique feature of this stage is the introduction of 3 languages, including the state's local language, English, and another Indian language of the student's choice. The middle stage, grade 6 to 8, brings vocational courses into the curriculum, starting as early as grade 6 with mandatory internships to provide hands-on experience. This initiative aims to bridge the gap between Indian students and their international counterparts in skill development. Finally, the secondary stage, grades 9 to 12, replaces the traditional board exams with a semester-based system, reducing pressure and allowing students to choose from a wide range of subjects. This flexibility enables students to tailor their education to their interests, promoting a more holistic and interest-driven learning experience. NEP 2020 represents a paradigm shift in Indian education, focusing on skill development, critical thinking, and a balanced approach to traditional and modern learning.